Hello everyone. Welcome back again to today's masterclass. LangChain Framework: Understanding and Using LangChain to Build for Production. Yeah, it is hosted by AgileFever and Sai Kumar, and I'll be your host for this exciting session. And we are glad to have you all here. This is one of the most impactful frameworks shaping the future of AI application development. Guys, you're all audible. Am I audible to you? Anand?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So in this session, we will try to drive into how LangChain bridges the gap between large language models and experimentation. So here we introduce our speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce our expert speaker, Anand, a leading AI practitioner and solution architect with extensive experience in building and deploying AI-driven systems. Anand has helped organizations leverage large language models effectively in production environments. And today he will share actionable insights, demos, and best practices to help us do the same. Over to you, Anand.
Okay, thank you very much, Sai. All right. I usually get scared if the group's very quiet, just because I don't know if they're understanding it or not. So what I'll do is at least by okay. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So at least by like let's say even chat message okay, or you could feel free to unmute and then just speak. How many of us here have any experience with programming? Typically Python programming. Are we from a dev background or are we outside of dev? Okay, that's good. And how many of us are already familiar with LangChain? Perfect, Chris. That's good. Oh, okay, I see. Oh, yeah, okay, very good. See, at least, okay, yeah, basics okay too, yeah, at least like a handful of us like know what LangChain is, and how many of us have already worked on using Gen AI based models, or at least like developing anything with Gen AI. It doesn't have to be agents or anything too fancy, just even making like simple LLM calls. Okay, so I am not talking to a non-technical audience, which is good for me. Okay, Copilot, yeah, it qualifies. Sure. Okay, so I've prepared this content in a way that we're able to start off with something absolutely basic, understand what LangChain is, and then also move to a demo that kind of focuses not more on the LLM development aspect, but more about how. Oh, okay, yeah, John, that's good too. Okay, but yeah, it should be fairly easy to follow along because what we're going to do today is not focus more around like how the code looks like or review the code or anything like that, but more about what you could do when you really want to take your LLM apps to production and actually want to start tracing and tracking your LLM application. So this actually is a very new area because up until this point, we've like if you would ask someone, let's say like 5 years ago, what generative AI is or like how you could use any large language model, probably at that time like one or two folks like who really understood research papers in this area would be able to speak about it. But flash forward to 2025, and today we see at least like five or six out of ten dev folks using LLMs either for their work or just for understanding the architecture or for design or etc etc. So at this point it is also very important to understand what's happening to our LLMs, or how are we spending our money, or how many tokens are we sending, or how much of text is being transcribed, what data are we receiving, and how is all of this impacting the performance or the infrastructure. No, that's exactly where you have this really nice frameworks from LangChain and LangSmith in place. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see it, and then we can continue with the session. Okay. Mm, Okay, that was actually the introduction to our session today, but I just realized that I didn't introduce myself. So I'll go with that first, and then we can continue with the session. My name's AV. I've been working with Expedia for about like 6.5 years now, and I started off as a data scientist and then moved to developing a few ML-based models. And like over the past year and a half or so, I've been working on Gen AI development. So my work primarily focuses on using Gen AI for solving business use cases. That's a super high level overview. And what I bring to this session today is my experience of working with the LangChain framework and also trying to establish a connection between LangChain and LangSmith and how you could use these to basically start tracking your LLM applications. So we will look at code, but the code's going to be very, very basic. My idea here is not to actually like write lines and lines of code, but to basically imagine that we've built something, some production ready application, and start tracing it to see what's happening under the hood or how you can actually bring transparency into the LLM models that you're building. So is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, Anand, we can able to see your screen.
Perfect, perfect. All right. At any point, if you have any question or if you want to ask something, please feel free to just like stop me. Okay. All right. So we've I've already introduced myself and we already spoke about what topics we're covering today. We'll then quickly go through what the LangChain ecosystem is, what the different components of this ecosystem are, and how they connect with each other. And we'll also speak about why the tracing of LLM projects is really important. And then we'll top all of this up with a demo case study. I will ensure that I have all of this material handed over to Sai and team. So if you ever have to reference any of these things, you can basically just use the Colab notebook and then just plug and play with it. Okay. All right. Since a handful of us already know what LangChain is and what this framework is used for, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but for those of us like who need a quick refresher, LangChain is basically a framework for developing applications that are powered by large language models. Now, the focus here is LLMs because we've had like we've had React framework when JavaScript was there. That's for devs like who wanted to work on front end, and then there's like an entire ecosystem around it. Similarly, when LLMs became like the daily bread and butter for all the engineering teams, there we definitely knew like there was a framework that was needed to basically have some orientation or like have some structure around how we interact with these LLMs. And that's exactly where LangChain fits in. For those of us like who already use LangChain, we know how easy it is to switch between models or like to understand or to basically trace anything that's happening at the time of execution or like plug and play or like use any of these components when we are actually streaming this to a real-time application. Like let's say you have a UI and then you need to stream all of this. So all of that's already possible and we know what LangChain can do in that aspect. Now, the next stage to this is LangSmith, where we basically have a full-fledged platform for, of course, not just directly building your production-grade LLMs, but basically monitoring them and evaluating how the apps that are using these LLMs are behaving in real time. So in the demo today, we'll actually see what happens when you make an LLM call and how you could trace the different aspects of the LLM call, including the tokens and the speed and the cost and so on and so forth, and also see how all of these are visualized in the LangSmith dashboard. Now, LangGraph is something that we won't speak about in today's session because that's more when you want to get into like having a flow for your agent or like a deep research agent or anything like that. So probably calls for a separate session, but today's focus would only be on LangSmith. Any questions? No. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, actually, we want this session to be interactive, so please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We will address them during the Q&A. Yeah, you
Okay.
can go ahead, Anand.
Okay. Yeah, someone's asking like if they'll probably get a link. Yes, they will. I think the link would be available, right, Sai?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's reserve the questions for the end. Unless like there is something in the code that you'd want me to stop and then explain. That's a different issue altogether. Okay. So why is tracing LLM projects so important? Basically, yeah, we like to track everything. If you order something on Amazon, you'd want to see like where your package is, and then how far it is from the delivery destination, and so on and so forth, right? So it's inherent to us that we'd want to trace, we'd want to track everything. The same goes with when you're using LLMs for building any applications. So we want more flexibility to basically build and tweak using a framework like LangChain and then tracing it via LangSmith allows us to switch from, let's say, ChatGPT model to Google's Nano Banana without having to change even a single line of code. Like all you do is like just replace the model and then like under the hood, LangChain takes care of everything. The next important aspect is to keep your costs within limits. Cost definitely is a significant factor when it comes to working with LLM applications. So we'd want to know how much we are spending for each LLM calls that we're making. Now, if we speak about production grade applications, you would have like tens of hundreds of thousands of users making calls using the same LLM application that you've built. But all of these happens like, let's say, asynchronously, and then you'll have to see how much you're spending or how, on a per user basis, or what's the cost you're incurring because of this. That will also help you like tailor your business use cases or tailor your costs later when you want to charge back to your customers. And also from a production and efficiency standpoint, we'd want to see what's happening under the hood with respect to speed, with respect to how the calls are being made, or with respect to how many tokens are being used, and so on and so forth. So there are dashboards in LangSmith that you can use for this retrospection and review. We'll definitely go over the dashboard as well in LangSmith today, but it's going to be like a very high level overview. But it'll help get the point conveyed. Okay, so let's just wait for it. All right, that's enough of talking. I usually like to see more about things in action rather than just speak about it. So what we spoke until now is like a quick introduction to what happens to what happens to LangChain, or like what happens when we actually make these LLM calls. So the focus today is not on how the new code, like how the code actually works. We'll definitely go over it. I'll give you like a brief or a very quick introduction, but we'll spend more time on LangSmith platform and see how you can set up LangSmith within your LangChain application to trace the elements of the LLM calls. Okay. So the Colab notebook link will be attached and it will be shared in the YouTube link, probably in the material section. But if you want to ever use that and then quickly get started, you can always feel free to just replace the API keys and you should be able to do it like super easy. Okay, so let me open the Colab notebook and then we can speak about it. Okay. So this is a demo notebook that we've created. You will have access to this. All of this will be available. Now, please note that I am not exposing my API keys for obvious reasons. So you will need to create your own and then just add them to the secret. If you're using Colab, like you'll need to add them to the secrets here. But otherwise it's like you can add them as environment variables and then just bring them into your notebook or like your script. Okay. If you're using Collab, we will definitely need to install you will need to import the Google Colab user data and also OpenAI. I'll also speak about some specific installations that you'll need for Colab, just in case like you want to use Colab as your tool for like testing all of this out. But every time you run the session, you'll need to import this because I don't want to waste space on my Google Drive. So you could either like install these packages to your Google Drive and then just call it from there. But I didn't want to do that. So every time like the sessions refresh, it'll install what packages are not available in Colab by default, and you'll also need to make these imports. Okay. Then OS is a standard library. I am also going to import the user data. That's where all of my keys sit. And it's the same way, like you would access, just like how you access your environment variables, you would use the same commands to basically enable LangChain tracing. Now, we'll speak about this in just about a minute, and then you'll also add your LangSmith API key, then your project. So it's easier for you to just click on that project and then start tracing it. And of course, your OpenAI API key. Now, even if you were to spend like, let's say like $2 or $3 and then just buy tokens, that's more than enough for you, not just for this session, but even if you were to do like a full-blown course on LangChain, that's more than sufficient for you. Okay, so I am going to import all these into my session, into this notebook specifically. Now notice that the LangChain OpenAI is not installed by default. So you will need to run this for every session because as I mentioned, I didn't want to waste space on my Google Drive. So I just thought like I'll install it for every session. So you can comment this out if you want to like install it and import it from your Drive folder. That's totally okay too. Okay, I am setting my LLM up for the model name and the temperature. The temperature is basically to define how creative or how strict the LLM should behave in terms of the output generation. Okay. And for today, the focus is we are trying to build like an AI chatbot that helps a user with movies information. I like watching movies, so I thought like this be an interesting use case. Of course, the focus here is not on how you can use chatbots to answer questions about movies, but to basically track your LLM application. But just for fun, I thought like this would be a very specific use case. Okay, and then we create this chain which uses the chat prompt template that we've defined here. This is a standard LangChain notation where you use the chat prompt template and then followed by the LLM that you've defined and then the string output parser. That's just to ensure that your output parser is a string. Okay, we run a very small loop and then the chatbot basically asks you anything about movies and then you basically start running. Unless you type exit, you can keep the session as interactive as you want. Okay, I'm going to run the cell now. On my initial run, what it's going to do is it's first going to install the LangChain OpenAI model and then it'll start importing the chat OpenAI and then we'll enter this loop. Yeah. Meanwhile, let's just take a minute and go one cell back. Yeah, it's already ready, but we'll take one cell, we'll go one cell back and then see what's happening with the LangSmith here. So there's a certain number of parameters that you'll need to define if you would ever want to like start tracing your LLM projects. So you go to this smith.langchain.com and then go to projects. Now, you could start like directly from Google. Like since I already have my account logged in, I just clicked on a link that's available. But you can basically just say LangSmith tracing, and then it'll take you to the space, and then you can sign up from here. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much like how you do it. Now, I'll speak about how I've set this whole thing up. It might look like we'll have to learn a lot of things about LangSmith, but the fact is that you actually don't have to know anything about this. You go to your LangSmith account and then click on new project. Basically, whatever you're seeing here, the LangSmith tracing enablement or the endpoint or the API, of course, the API key you need to generate it from your account. You can do it via the settings and then give it a project name and of course your OpenAI API key or whatever you're using, like if you're using Gemini or if you're using something else. Okay, you just basically copy all of these here, tweak them to suit your environment. Like for example, I've named my project as agent demo LangSmith API key, and then the project's name is LangSmith tracing. So if you go back to the tracing project section, you see that we already have the agent demo LangSmith tracing. And since I have enabled tracing to be true, it's going to take this. Okay, now I am these are some calls that I already made, like just for test. I'm going to show you how this works in real time. So let's say what I ask the chatbot, what is the best movie of 2023 on IMDb ratings? Okay. So this is my question. And if you go back to LangSmith, notice how it's already started tracing it. Okay. Whenever it's an execution, it's going to basically give you the status. Once it's complete, it's going to give you a green check mark. But you can already start looking at some aspects here. Look at how it's calculating the cost. And then once you click on that, it's also going to show you like how many tokens it's spending. We let like the whole process to be complete, and then we can figure out. Okay. All right. So based on like IMDb ratings for 2023, it seems Super Mario Brothers was the highest rated comedy movie, and then followed by Barbie. Okay, yeah, as I mentioned, like our focus is not on like how the chatbot's behaving, but basically to start tracing all of this. Okay, now look at how it's already calculating the number of input tokens, the number of output tokens, and how many of them are based on reasoning. And it's also going to give you like the costs for based on just the input and output as well. If you want to trace what kind of questions are being sent to your LLM applications, you basically have that here. Now, you could access all of these programmatically and then basically just start looking, like collect the log of all these things and see how users are interacting with your app and so on and so forth. Okay, then of course, this is the chat prompt template that you've defined. This is where like the actual LLM call is made. You can even like select two of these, like for example, these two, and then you can click on compare. Then it'll show you how the tokens or the cost varied between each of these LLM calls. Okay. Once the whole process is complete, notice how this changed to like a green check mark that indicates that everything, all of the tracing with respect to this LLM call is now complete. You can see the amount of time. This is the total number of tokens, which includes like both the input and the output. And this is the level of transparency that LangSmith gives you when you start tracing. Okay. Now, outside of this, there's also something called dashboard, which basically gives you the entire trace, like an aggregate view for all of the LLM calls that you make. Like for example, you can look at the latency, which of course, if performance is an issue, like you would definitely want to look at this. It even goes down to looking at the LLM latency. It will tell you like how much time you're spending just for the LLM call. Like you might have 10 different processes and one of them is just like the LLM call in your entire application. So you'd want to see how much time you're spending just for the LLM latency. This is for the overall latency. Okay. Then of course you can look at the costs, you can look at the tokens, You can look at the token split by input versus output, and you even have like the ability to add some metrics like if you wanted to. Okay, and then you can go like as far back in time as you want to. Okay, so let's go back. And of course, yeah, within this dashboard, like you can look at all these things via these tabs as well. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so that's about the dashboard. That's about how you can trace. And then you can also use evaluators that will basically help you evaluate your model. There are tons and tons of options here. The most standard one being LLM as a judge. You can add this as an evaluator to your application, and it's going to evaluate all your traces, and it can make suggestions. It can tell you what's good, what's not good, if there's any scope for improvement. And of course, you can also add like your own code evaluator. Like if you write a custom script in Python and then ask it to evaluate, it's going to do that too. And then there's like so many other pre-built evaluators that are like embedded already within LangSmith, where you can use like you can check for hallucination, you can check for conciseness, and you can even add like your own parameters that you want to check your application or your LLM tracing on. Okay. So, okay, there's also one more thing. For our use case today, we are not tracing anything outside of the LLMs, but basically there is ability to even trace, let's say, your vector store, and then you can see how many, like the amount of space you're consuming for the embeddings, or the number of LLM calls you're making after you access your vector storage. So it's not just LLMs, but you can even like track your vector storage. You can track your embeddings and the costs related to those as well. That I'm like we're not doing anything with respect to embeddings or vector database today, but that's another area that you could also trace with LangSmith. Okay, just to close this thing out, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to say exit. Then yeah, and then the bot says like thanks for chatting about movies, and then we can always come back. So as you can see, LangSmith is going to trace that as well. It's again going to show you the number of input and output tokens and the cost associated with it. And of course, like you can always like start evaluating, look at the dashboard and so on and so forth. But that's a super high level overview of what's possible with the LangSmith dashboard. So as I mentioned, yeah, our focus was not on like how we built this, because this is a very small loop. Like you could literally just copy paste this and then get started. But the focus is more about if you were to build something like this for production, how will you actually start tracing it? That's where like this whole session has been focused on. It's about like how you use LangSmith to actually trace it. That introduces a lot of tracing capability and transparency into whatever you're doing. So if you were to like let your leaders know as to how much you're spending with respect to cost, with respect to tokens and everything, everything's available here like in one dashboard. Okay. So okay, let's all right. That's about the whole LangSmith and LangChain framework. This is basically what I had for today's demo. Any questions, or would you want me to go over any of the aspects again?
May I know where do you majorly use this LangSmith framework?
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
May I know where do you use this LangSmith, LangChain framework?
Okay,
Means
so
what are the application areas? That's what I mean.
okay, yeah, got it. So if you basically have any application where you are making any LLM calls, by LLM, I mean, let's say like you're building something similar to, let's say like you're using something similar to the ChatGPT, for example, like you're building something like ChatGPT, then you definitely want, or you're using something just like this. if you're building a movie recommendation system, like you have users that will basically come to your website and then say, okay, tell me about this movie, or just like how we ask in Google. Let's see. If I've now entered the AI mode, and then if I'm start typing anything here, and if I want to track all of that, that's where you'd use LangSmith. So LangChain as a framework is basically used when you want to build any applications that use LLMs like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. Now, LangSmith is when you want to start tracking these LLM applications that either use or do not use LangChain. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so do we use API to launch dashboard? No, you don't need to. So all of that is already available in the UI. All you have to do is just configure it the way that you're seeing here. For any application, like this is not like a demo thing that I've set up. You can basically just copy paste this and then use it for any of your projects, like even in production, and it'll still start tracing. But of course, you'll need to if it's for work, you'll need to, of course, get the necessary permissions from your workplace to ensure that all of this is enabled and it goes through your security, your firewall and everything. But if you want to just learn like how to do this, you can literally just take this notebook, this IPython notebook, and then start tracing it. And you don't use API to fetch data from the dashboard. It already does all of that for you, and you just click on dashboard and you can see it.
Anand, I have a question. So, hello?
Yeah, please tell me.
Yeah, I've very recently made use of LangGraph. I'm a data engineer to start with.
Okay.
And for me to, I created this wrapper tools and for my agent to have access to Azure Data Factory or Databricks, as two different tools or to what
Sure.
do you call? Yeah, that's where I created these nodes and all that. So I do have some understanding of LangGraph and LangChain. I've done something in terms of podcasts, like how you did for movies. Podcast was my use case when I
Okay.
started using LangChain. But LangSmith, I'm still trying to. I mean, you did a good job at explaining, but I somehow missed it or didn't pay attention. If you can go through LangSmith and tell me again, what exactly it's specifically used for. I know what LangChain is used for, Lang nodes, LangGraph, what they're used for, but LangSmith, not really. I didn't get it.
Okay, let me okay, I understand like what you're working on. So let me ask you this question.
Hmm.
When you were building your agents,
Hmm.
how did you know like how many tokens you were consuming or like how much cost you were incurring?
I mean, I had a rough estimate, but yeah, I was not really sure though.
Okay, so that's where LangSmith comes into play. Like
Okay.
for in this example use case here, if
Uh,
I let's say like for example like I do this for let's say for work, okay,
hmm.
I really like have this chatbot that I give my users where they can ask questions about like best movies, okay, and then but I say what is the best superhero movie. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
in your case, just like how you're using your agent to use those different tools, but you're telling me that you don't know like how
Right.
you can trace the number of tokens that you've consumed or the amount of data you're sending or the
Yeah.
amount of cost that you're incurring. That's
Right.
exactly where LangSmith comes into play, as I mentioned earlier. See, if you go back again,
Uh-huh. You're not sharing your screen.
oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh, I am very, very sorry. Okay,
Exactly.
let me share it here. Okay, so yeah, I asked the exact
Okay.
same question. What
Hmm.
is the best superhero movie? And then I got an answer from my bot. Now, in your use case, you would have asked your agent to use like this Azure Data Factory tool
Sure.
or like so and so tools that you've created wrappers for, and then
Right.
it's going to do something, right? That's a different use case. But when you actually want to start tracing this, what happens is you would need something like LangSmith. For
Hmm.
example, here I asked this question about what is the best superhero movie. Now, if I
Hmm.
go back to those traces, and in your case, like for every node, you will
Hmm.
basically be able to see the number of tokens. Like it's the same.
Right.
You see this, and
Right. Right.
then
Right.
you
Right.
see the number of input and output tokens and the amount of cost that you're incurring.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, that's where like LangSmith comes into play. There's a lot of other features, like as I
Hmm.
mentioned, you can use the dashboard, you can like use the evaluators where you use LLM as a judge. All these are to ensure that let's say in your case, your agent is able to you're able to track everything back and then let your team know that this is what we're spending on this particular agent, or if they want to see the latency, as I showed in the dashboard earlier. Oops, just a second. Yeah, as I showed in the dashboard earlier, if you want to check the latency, if you want to check the costs or everything, all of them are available.
Right.
Okay, that's where LangSmith comes into play. So you could use LangChain to build your agent, then LangGraph to, let's say, like use a deep research agent or something like that,
Correct.
or define your flows and everything. And then you could use your
LangSmith for
LangSmith to
evaluation.
trace these things.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So that's about LangSmith. Okay. In Collab, can we run same like this? Yes, you can. Just ensure that let me actually I'll keep my screen shared. I don't want to share and unshare. So I think Pooja, you asked this question, right? So yes, just ensure that you add your own API keys here. It's super easy. If you want a new API key, all you do is you either click on, once you're here, you either click on the new project, or you can, okay, right, tracing projects. Yeah, you click on new project, then click on generate API key. This is, mind you, there are two different API keys here. One, the LangSmith's API key, and these are free. You don't have to pay anything for this. But it's, you just click on generate API key and it's going to generate. Okay. Or the other way to generate this LangSmith's API key is from the settings here, go to API keys, and then you can click on API key. The flexibility here is you can name your API key if you create using the settings. But if you do it directly from the tracing project section, it'll just use a default name auto created during onboarding. But yeah, you can definitely use my notebook and then basically do all of this for yourself without spending a single penny for the LangSmith part. Now, the OpenAI part, you will still need an API key, but that's hardly like any cost. If you just spend like $2 or like even $5, it'll be more than sufficient for you for like to complete like an entire course on OpenAI or an entire course on LangChain, LangSmith, agents, and everything. So this is the only space where you will need to actually spend some real money, but that's hardly anything. And then get your API key. But other than that, you don't spend anything here, unless you're using it for work. For work, it's a different thing. But yeah, otherwise you don't spend any money here. But that's basically how you do it. And this will be linked to the session in YouTube, so you can just download this and get started. Okay. It's a standard IPython notebook. You can upload this notebook to your Colab in your Google and then start running these cells. It'll work just like the way you're seeing here. Okay.
Hey Anand, can we have the glance of the data set you used for creating those um, graphs?
Okay, so the data sets actually coming from here. You look at this project, right? Now you see there's yeah, for the entire project, you see like the total number of tokens and all that here, right? How many input and output like tokens we've sent and the cost we've incurred. So the dashboard is actually building that building those tables based on the data that you have here. So I don't have a separate data set. I don't need a separate data set for it. If you're looking at this and then thinking like data set, no, this is the ability to add this to a data set. Like let's suppose you want to take all of this data and then visualize it in Power BI or visualize it in Excel or Tableau, then you would add all of these to a data set and then connect it there. But otherwise, this dashboard that you're seeing here, that's already based on the data that you have, like from the tokens that you've sent. Like look at this from the cost and tokens dashboard here. You see, it's going to show you like the number of tokens that you're spending for each call.
Actually, I'm quite naive, so I'm not getting the idea about the data set format even. That it's in CSV, which format you've been used likewise, no?
Okay, so the data set that you're talking about is something that's built within this LangSmith. So I am not building a separate data set. what it's doing is under the hood, LangSmith is actually collecting all of this data into, like, let's say, a temporary storage, and it is just creating these visualizations based on the data that it is seeing here. Just like how you create all of your, like how you put all of your data in CSV and then build all those graphs, LangSmith is doing that for you behind the scenes, which is why like it becomes a really handy tool if you want to trace your LLM applications.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello, this is Kamal Anand. A quick question regarding, I get some overview, but what would be your suggestion where I can start working on this technology or Gen AI and everything? So do you have any kind of recommendation, things like that? So I am completely a background of software engineer and software architect, from C++ and Java and all this world. So now I'm moving into that direction, So there are a lot of things are available in the market and things like that. So it's completely confusing, things like that,
Makes sense. No, yeah. Especially like if you already have a programming background, getting started should be super duper easy. All you have to do is just like understand the whole architecture behind how LLMs work, and then how you could use LLMs for building any like real use cases. So since you're telling me that you have like a really good, if you're at like architect level, I'm pretty sure like you'll have a lot of experience with building production level systems. So where I'd recommend getting started is making like simple API calls using OpenAI's API. You go to OpenAI API documentation.
I have an open API account, and everything are there. So I'm doing all this prompt engineering and everything. But the thing is, now there are a lot of projects are coming they are in pipelines. So taking all these projects, I'm little bit, telling the story that I am still on that way,
Okay, got it.
because
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, if you already have like some use cases that let's say your stakeholders are asking you for, then the best way to get started is to use a framework like this, because it'll already do a lot of processing for you like behind the scenes. I'd say since you have an OpenAI API account, just use that, get started with LangChain, and then see how you can use LangChain's framework to start building those use cases. And then you can look at like LangGraph or LangSmith based on like how deep your this thing use cases.
And the last question, sorry, I'm asking too. Do you have any kind of because I love to reading also and things like that, or documentation or somewhere, based on the because I don't want to go spend the time and searching. I'm doing it, but at the end of the day, things like that, So it's just if you have something in your mind or something, so
You're asking for LangChain or just GenAI in general?
both, I think both, if it
Okay,
is
for
possible.
GenAI, like there's a list of like what I could do is like maybe I'll just add them towards the end of this PPT, and then I'll share it so you have it for reference, like even after the session.
Yeah, that will be great,
Yeah. For LangChain, like there is a really nice session from one of the LangChain developer advocates who is like very closely involved with the LangChain developer community. In fact, like I think he's one of the contributors as well. I'm going to link that Udemy course also. It's a very good course. It's very highly rated. I definitely recommend taking that also.
Okay, good. Okay,
But yeah,
thank
there are a
you.
lot of like YouTube channels that speak about.
Yeah. There are a lot of there, but
I can
people
I
are
can
in.
send the list out.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
I'll
you.
add it to this PPT and then send.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Is that it?
Hi, folks. Is there any questions? Any other questions? I think that's all, Anand.
Okay.
So that's bring us to the end of the session. A big thank you to Anand Vamsi for sharing his expertise, and thank you all for joining. And if you are looking to deepen your AI skills further, check out our AgileFever's upcoming bootcamps and professional certifications as well. And we do have webinars recordings as well. Please follow our YouTube page so that you can get more webinars like this. I mean, there are recordings you can that might be helpful for you. Yeah, I think we can sign off, Anand.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All the best, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much. Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.